This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guest today is an icon. Some of the careers of the biggest names in the business were kickstarted when she cast them in Michael Mann's Miami Vice. Names such as Julia Roberts, Ben Stiller, Stanley Tucci, Bruce Willis, Liam Neeson, Steve Buscemi, and many, many more. And she's cast some of the most iconic movies ever made, including The Karate Kid, Heat, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Trading Places, Armageddon, Dirty Dancing, Midnight Run, State of Grace, Awakenings, The Last of the Mohicans, Glengarry Glen Ross, Carlitos Way, Pearl Harbor, Black Hawk Down, Man on Fire, Public Enemies, just to name a few. Our guest today is casting director Bonnie Timmerman. Here is a trailer for Bonnie, a wonderfully insightful upcoming documentary about her incredible career.
Ready?
I know she is strong like a bull.
You know, she's that hype.
She has total confidence.
She's legendary as a casting director.
She's tough, too.
She's an icon. She really is. What is a casting director? You're judging what you see in front of you.
A good casting director will add a dimension that maybe even the writer didn't know it existed.
You're seeing behind the surface of the performers, behind the work.
A casting director is somebody who knows the script and the story.
And their job is to suggest actors for the roles in the script.
But the casting directors can be this bridge between nothing and everything for an actor.
I would not say that I want to mother an actor, but I would do anything in my power to help them.
She absolutely loves actors. She was one of those people who was at the spearhead of what we're calling non-traditional casting.
Why can't they be black? Why can't they be Puerto Rican?
It's benefited people like me, people like Benicio del Toro.
I spend 20, 40 minutes talking to the actors, so the director gets a chance to see not just the performance and the best possible performance.
Every actor that you can name of worth has been through the Bonnie Timmerman casting extravaganza.
One of the most passionate people I've ever met, and talented.
When an actor could just transform into this other being, that's when you know you're sitting with greatness.
Hiya, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Can you
I'm
hear
very
me?
good. I'm
Okay.
very good.
All right.
Thank you
Good.
so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, this business has changed so much where you can talk to people all over the world.
I know, amazing. It's completely
Yeah.
changed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
From
that
being
must...
a tough thing and it became something much larger, I guess you could say. I can have conference calls with people all over the world, so it's not my favorite. I prefer in person, but it's pretty exciting. But go ahead. I think you have laid out some interesting questions for me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, well, I'll tell you how this came about, actually.
Okay.
The reason I reached out, not only because you have an incredible career, and I'm a huge fan of a lot of your work, but
Thank you.
I had John Ortiz, the actor, who you've actually cast a few times. His first role was in Carlitos Way, and he was telling me the story that you cast him in that, and the kind of energy in the room and the experience of going on set and that being his first film. And I just thought, wow, I've got to reach out and just see if you're available to chat, because just the list of things that you've worked on is incredible. And yeah, that's how it came about. John was singing your praises, and I just thought I have to reach out.
Okay, well, I'm flattered, very flattered. Yeah, I'm hoping to get it right one of these days.
Or get casting right.
I think if you think you know it all,
yeah,
you know nothing. So I'm always searching and looking. You know, makes sense.
Oh, definitely. And I do feel like now that I was aware of the films you'd done, but then looking through the list in detail, I was just blown away by the diversity. There's so many, you've done every genre, and it's kind of crazy the actors that you've worked with, the productions, the sizes, big, small, a whole range.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know, how did you get into this in the first place? Before we start talking about all these huge projects you worked on, what was
Oh,
the beginning?
well, I worked as a secretary for an agent at an agency called APA, and he would take me to the theater 3-4 times a week, and I thought, oh, I'm just in love here. And he had most of his clients were in one play or the other, and so I got to meet them, and I became fascinated with the stage, with actors, and I don't. I have to say that I didn't really wake up one day and say, I want to be a casting director. I didn't really even understand what that was. And so a friend of mine, who is a casting director as well, her name is Judy Henderson, she called me and she said, there's a theater company and they're looking for a casting director. And I said, oh, okay. I'm always open to sort of jump into the pool, at any given moment. So went over to the theater, met the owner, and he liked me very much. I had no experience, none. And
Wow.
he said, you got the job. And I said, well, wow, okay. And then I thought, I have to learn now what it is to be a casting director. So I kept going to the theater 3 times a week. I would, leave at intermission, go and see another play, and then, run home and watch television, look at movies on weekends, and to try to understand the actors. Sort of extraordinary what they do. So that's really how I started. I did have influences that were my family. My father always wanted to be a talent scout, but never. He was a boxer and he wanted to be in show business, but lived vicariously through me. My mother sang opera.
Oh, wow.
My sister, her name is June Gable. She's an actress. She starred on Broadway and did a lot of television. And my brother he's a sound engineer, but he's also a musician. So I really was surrounded by artful people. And and my husband right now is a writer, and we're going to be making movies together. So it just was in my path, so to speak.
Oh, wow. That's amazing that you obviously have a very artistic family.
Yes, not easy to live with, but pretty incredible. Yes,
A lot of
very
freelancers.
magical. Pardon?
A lot of freelancers. It must be quite
Yeah,
hectic.
yeah, but it just, there was always opera. My mother sang opera, so there was always opera. My father didn't really care for opera, but so there was always that, kind of mix. I feel like I'm one half him and one half her. And I think I had a lot of admiration for the music my brother played and my sister's acting. And then, at a pretty young age, I went to Las Vegas for a vacation with a friend, and LA, California, and Las Vegas. And I went just purely by accident to a party, and sitting at my table was Elvis Presley, and I got at a very young age to sit at a table with Elvis Presley, Fred Astaire, and Frank Sinatra, and so many incredible people. It was just a very magical kind of thing. And I thought, this is where I should be. This is coming to me. Even though I'm going to it, it's also coming right back at me. So it was kind of extraordinary. So that's really my influences. And I originally was a violinist when I first started out, before secretarial, before that, and I thought music was going to be the path, but it turned out that it wasn't. So.
And how did you make that change, going from being a musician to then deciding actually this isn't necessarily for me, and then moving on from that? How did that come about?
It was tough because, 10% of nothing is nothing. And so I decided I would be many different things. I got involved in the art world, where I was trying to sell art, and then got jobs like with this agent who thought I was probably the worst secretary he had ever had, but that I was really wonderful with actors. And he would weep because, the office was a mess because I was a terrible secretary. But I had great heart and hope for the actors, and he really pushed me out. He fired me, and he said, "You should go and do something else. A good thing would be probably casting." And he was right. He was right.
Did that feel like a real sort of moment, sliding doors moment for you at that point?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I got the job, the office was at the Lyceum Theater on Broadway, and my office was right in front of the toilet of the Lyceum Theater. And I would go and audition actors, and the toilet would be behind me. And it was pretty crazy. But the theater is exquisite, and I got to meet actors, and they would read pieces for me and act out characters, and I just was in heaven.
Oh, it's amazing to hear that. I love hearing these stories where, I look at your career and I'm looking at it as a whole and all these amazing things that you've done. But it's so amazing to hear where that came from, and the fact that, everyone starts small and grows up from there. And it's very inspiring to hear that. That's such a visual as well, that you're crammed in right next to the toilet doing these castings.
They never even thought about it. I mean, they just came in, started with their monologue, and just was wonderful. It's sort of, for me, like going to the ballet or going to the opera, how extraordinary to listen to music, and or going to museums and seeing beautiful paintings. I guess I could say I'm one of the lucky ones, but it didn't come that early on for me. I really had to find my way before, and also I knew that I had to be good. I was like responsible for people's careers. So it was very important for me to know what I was doing. And that takes some practice. It takes reading voraciously, know, your classics, know the good writers, what they should sound like. And, you know, and also being able to see actors on the stage or actors doing television or doing both, or film actors, and being able to put the actors in proper roles and places, I guess. Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's such a different art, isn't it? Obviously, from stage, as you said, stage to film. How did you make the transition into movies from, you know, working on the stage?
Well, this is what was so wonderful about the theater. They filmed, I'm going to say 4 plays that the first 4 plays that I worked on. And 5 years later, they all became big stars. And Hollywood just knocked on my door and said, if you could do this 5 years ago, we want you to work for us. And that turned out to be Francis Coppola. Wow. And so I worked with him and his wonderful casting director and producer by the name of Fred Roos. Pretty cool guy, I have to say. Wow. They still work together.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So that they came to you. They literally your dream came to you, and they obviously could see that you had a good eye. They were like, wait a minute, something's happening here.
Yeah, but you don't know it. You just have to do the very best you can do and hope for the best. But the plays were cast with actors like Meryl Streep and John Lithgow and Tom Hulce and Tony Musante, and I could just remember all the wonderful, wonderful actors that we cast for the first season. And that first season was, I think, 3 or 4 plays. They all were televised on PBS, and kind of the rest was a little bit of history. But I, you know, I worked hard for it. I never felt it was an easy job. As a matter of fact, I still don't think it's an easy job. I think it's a hard job to cast. And that's why now that we're going to be nominated for awards, it's even more rewarding, because, you know, what do you see when you go to the movies or a play? You see actors. You know, it was just like a no-brainer, I think.
Yeah, that is mad that it's only now become the fact that you can get awards for it, and it's been recognized in more, you know, ceremonies, and that just blows my mind. It's like you're the unsung heroes of film, but now hopefully more visible because of this.
Yeah.
As I said at the beginning, I mean, there's plenty of films and projects that you've done that they're in my top 10 films of all time. And there's a couple I would love to ask you about if you would bear with me. The first one is The Karate Kid, which is it's iconic. And it's a film that, you know, I like a lot of your projects, are films that people still talk about years down the line. I mean, I don't even know, that film must be 30, 40 years old. I'm not, I don't even, it's 1985, was it, I think?
You're going to ask me about years and I won't be able to remember any of the years. I'm sorry to say. Apologize for
I'm
that.
terrible with
so bad with numbers, and years. Karate Kid was we looked interesting. You would mention that because Ralph did a movie for Francis Coppola, and I got to know him. And I also got to know Elizabeth Shue just because I thought she was so beautiful and such a good actress and very kind-hearted and smart. So I brought in a lot of actors for those roles, and they got them. they got the parts, which was great. And the movie turned out really good. John Avildsen was the director, and he's no longer here. He's no longer alive, but he did movies like Rocky and Karate Kid, and he knew how to hold his audience.
Yeah, it was that he's such a great underdog. He's great at telling stories about underdogs.
Yes, yeah.
And you get behind the characters.
A good director. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great. And yeah, I mean, The Karate Kid it was a real staple of my childhood. And along with Beverly Hills Cop 2 as well, and Dirty Dancing, and they're such iconic films now. It's just crazy to think. I mean, I'm trying to figure out now with something like Dirty Dancing, I presume. Yeah, I mean, with Patrick Swayze at the time he'd done a few things, but was that the film that really sort of set him off on his way?
I think in a way it was. He was an incredible dancer. And I auditioned quite a few people for that role, but no one was like Patrick. No one could dance like that. And I actually had videotape of his audition dancing at the Chateau Marmont. So you can, seeing is believing is a big part of my middle name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, I can't tell you that was the movie that launched him, but I can tell you that people still come up to me today and say, how wonderful he was. And Jenny Gray too was fantastic. It's just that right combination, of people coming together. It's kind of extraordinary, like a dream. Yeah.
And a film that just sort of holds up. There've been so many sort of versions of it. There's been a musical in the West End over this way, and there's been all these like versions, and it's still so huge. And I don't know if this is true. I saw a documentary which was talking about the making of that film, and I mean they were hyping up the fact that at the time no one realized it was going to be any good, and I don't know how true that is, but there was a rumor that the studio were going to burn the negative because they were they just thought it wasn't going to be any good. They were going to claim the insurance back. This is what this documentary said. I don't know how true this is. But watching that, I was just like, it just shows you never know. And
no, I didn't know. No one. I actually turned down the script, I'm going to say 4 times, and they kept giving me more money. And it's not the money, So I decided I was going to do it after all. I met the director, whose name was Emil Ardolino, and I wish he was alive because he was an incredible human being. He was a dance person. He made movies about dance. And when I met him, I knew I was going to do the movie. And I also understood Jennifer Grey's character going up to the mountains and meeting this kind of bad boy. And I just thought, I got to do this. This is fun. And, but the truth is we did cast by process of elimination. It was scale plus 10. Nobody made any money. And Jerry Orbach was a friend of my father's. My father would call me up and say, I hope you're giving this job to Jerry. They went to a gym together. So I said, yeah, we really like him. But my father called every day to say, you got to use Jerry Orbach. He's got to be in that movie. And so he was.
Wow.
He was a big star on Broadway.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly.
Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/life and film, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life in Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by Betterhelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, Betterhelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. And back to the show. I saw that there's a documentary about your life called Bonnie, which I really want to check out. And I didn't know that until I did my homework. I was like, I want to watch it before speaking to you, but didn't have a chance.
You should take a look at it. It's got a lot of wonderful actors in it. Yeah.
I did see a little clip of it, and some of the footage of the young actors like Viggo Mortensen, and there was so many little sort of audition tapes. It was incredible.
Yes, I hope that the movie will come out soon. We were in Venice, and then just recently we went to Rome and Bologna, where it was just extraordinary experience for me, and Q&As and standing ovations. And we went there, which, because I'm not an actor, so I'm on the other side of the camera, and that's scary, I gotta tell you. So we went there because I hired a casting director out of Italy to work on a gorgeous miniseries that I did with Derek in France, the great director, and she did the Italian casting for us. And I just kept in touch with her. I said, you do such great work. How are you? She said, look, I went to Venice. I saw your movie. Can I bring you over to Rome? Because we're trying to get Academy Award nominations here in Italy. She said, can I show your film? And then can we do a Q&A? Can we talk about casting? I said, yes. And we went over. It was very successful, very exciting. And within a week's time, they gave the Italian casting directors, nominations. And so I feel very responsible for that, and very happy to be there to do that, to meet all these wonderful Italian actors and directors, and it was exciting. It was very exciting.
That's amazing. Was that recently then? Was that this year? Or?
Yes, it was recent. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah, that must be a little bit strange, as you say, like suddenly then being kind of in front of the camera and kind of getting to see it from a different angle.
I felt like totally like an actress. As a matter of fact, when they shot the documentary, they put me in a taxi, and they lit up the taxi, and we drove up and down Broadway, and people saw this taxi all lit up, and somebody screamed out, Lady Gaga is in the car. So I just put my hand up and waved, because I thought for 2 minutes I'm going to feel like a rock star.
Yeah, why not?
It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I saw a little bit of a clip of you in the taxi, actually, that little bit. Didn't see you wave, but yeah, it looks
It
great.
was so silly, I tell you, but it it was something, you know. I was very proud, and of course that they were doing that they wanted to make a documentary. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, you know you've done something right in your career when someone comes to you and says, "I want to make a documentary about your life." That's pretty
I
amazing.
think so. I think so.
Oh
I
no,
think so.
I look forward to watching it, and yeah, very interesting for me because I'm actually an actor myself, so getting to see that footage of young actors before they've made it, and kind of seeing, well, particularly Viggo Mortensen was the one that struck me, just seeing him so young and obviously before he'd sort of cracked it is very inspiring, and it just shows you that it's possible to get there, and everyone has to start from somewhere. So
Anything's possible.
anything's
Anything
possible.
possible. You just have to, you know, work hard and put your mind to it. And I believe in that. I believe you can't get anything unless you ask for it.
100%, 100%.
Got to go for it.
In terms of asking for something, I would love to ask you advice. As an actor, I'd love to hear, and our audience is, we have a lot of actors, we have, because we do, you know, behind the scenes, and directors, producers, actors, all kinds of people come on the show. And our audience is a real mixed bag, but I know there's a lot of actors. And so I'd love to ask the advice of, do you have advice for actors going in the room? No, if they were coming in to read for you, I know not necessarily you get to come in and actually do it physically much anymore, but what would your advice be to a young actor going in the room for an audition?
Well, I would just say be kind of mysterious and probably, and I've said this before, just read and fill your mind with things other than acting, because the camera's going to pick up on that. And I think if you could be as smart as you can be, that will help you to see and hear. And you're going to be listening to what the casting director or what the director is going to say to you. So I think it's important not just to talk about yourself, but to talk about the world that you live in and be interesting. That would be the first thing. Obviously, be prepared. But, you know, and don't worry so much about where the camera is, but what you're thinking and what you're communicating. If you think it right, you'll communicate it right. Does that help at all?
No, I love that actually. I think the point, the bit that I took away from that was to think about other things outside of the acting, because your face is always you're always gonna see the expression of something. That's really interesting actually. That's really
I
interesting.
shoot from here to here. I don't shoot here.
This
is what I'm interested in. What's going on in
side,
that?
oh, right, yeah, no, I see what you mean.
You know,
Yeah.
sorry, because we're
I thought you
talking.
meant side profile, but I see what you mean, as in what's going on in the mind. Yeah,
Yeah, where are you? Where you come from? Do you have any good jokes? You know, just anything. Warm up, turn around. Don't start until you're ready. You know, like that. But every audition is different, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, definitely. Some can go well, some can go badly. But
Yeah.
I do miss going in the room. It's a very rare thing now, and it feels like it's changed a lot with tapes and things like that. Has that been a big change in your career, going from, you know, actually physically getting to sort of talk to someone in the room to now then maybe watching more tapes?
No, I still talk to people. That's a big part of what I do is I find talking to actors is so important because you get to understand who they are and you can guide them or help them. And that's the way to do it. It's a little old-fashioned, but I believe in communication. I believe in speaking. I'm about to do a movie that I'm very excited about. I'm about to cast a film, and my intention is to sit in an office and bring people in to talk to me and read for the director. That I want to bring. I'd like to bring that back if
That's
I'm lucky.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
And
That's part of it, you know.
yeah,
That's part of it.
100%. Because I feel like as well when you're doing an audition, and because weirdly I did a film quite a few years back where I'd already been cast, so then I came in and was reading with the actors that were coming in to
Right.
cast for the other roles, and getting to have that little moment of seeing what it was like from the other side taught me so much, like the dynamic, and you can really feel the room change when someone comes in and does something that's intriguing, or
Yeah.
you can feel the room light up. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's how I felt.
I do. I tell a story about many, many years ago. Meryl Streep came in to audition for the theater, for the Phoenix Theater. In the room turned golden yellow, and I said, what just happened? What happened to the lights? I mean, she was so beautiful, and she understood the character so well that the room just changed. And I remember this as if it were yesterday. You know, she had a bicycle tire that she brought downstairs to audition because you couldn't leave a bike without it being stolen, stolen in New York. And yeah, so yeah, the room can change color. Definitely.
Wow. There is another film that I would love to ask you about, and it's probably one of the most famous casting couplings. Is that the right? Probably not the right word, but two people on screen, two of the most iconic actors, and that would be Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat. Again, an iconic film, and you know, putting a cast together like that. It, how do you even begin? I mean, it's iconic now, so it seems really obvious those are the right people for the roles. But do you have any sort of memory of casting that film and what that process was like?
Sure, I do. I think everyone wanted to read for that movie. Everybody wanted to be in a movie with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. And I was just happy and proud to be working on it. Of course, that I was working with Michael Mann, who's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
And
he's pretty good.
yeah, he's pretty good. And you know, it was a tremendous effort to cast the movie and to obviously produce the movie. I just was very proud. I can't say that I did anything different. I do the same thing on every movie, but when you're casting a movie and everyone wants to be in it, it's pretty luxurious. And of course, I wanted to give all the actors that wanted to be in the movie an opportunity to read for it. So that made it very long hours, long days, long nights.
It must be hard when you're the opposite of that, when it's a film that, you know, if you've got an actor you really want and you've got them in your mind and you're like, this is the person, and then they either can't do it because of a schedule or whatever the reason is. That must be heartbreaking as well. And you kind of have an idea of what you want and you can't make it fit.
I usually can make it fit
Fair enough.
because there's always one person for every role. That's sort of another philosophy of mine. Sometimes things take longer, or sometimes there are changes and one actor drops out and another gets the part. I remember doing a movie called Black Hawk Down, and Ben Foster, who I like so much.
He's amazing, yeah.
Wonderful actor, came in to read, and I said, "Whoa, you're really good, but you're kind of thin." Ridley wants muscular guys, but I'm going to introduce you to Ridley anyway, because I couldn't help myself. So he came in and he read, and Ridley said, "Gee, you're awfully good, but you're so thin. I want big." So he said, "Just give me a few weeks. Please, just give me some time to build myself up." And I guess it was about a month later he came in, was still reading everybody. He came in, he was bulked up, and he got the part. And then he broke his arm.
No.
And he couldn't do the movie. So, there's always a fate about what you're going to do or what path you're going to walk down. But he's somebody special, Ben,
He's amazing.
and he always will be. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors, and he's someone that's just so versatile. He can play any part.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, and that's a mad, because when you were telling that story, I was trying to rack my brains. I was like, was he in that? Just really young, and I didn't realize he was in it. And then he obviously broke his arm. That's so yeah, fair enough. But as you say, everything happens for a reason.
For a reason, yes, for sure.
He's one of those actors that elevates everything he's in. He did a film. I don't know if you ever saw a film called Alpha Dog.
Of course, yes, I did.
Yeah, and I mean it's a great film, but he is just insanely. That was the film that I'd seen him in other things, but I hadn't noticed him. And then I watched that and I was like, who is this guy? He's gone in 110% on this role, and he's insanely good.
Very strong, very believable, very talented.
I've been following his career ever since that moment, watching him in that. But yeah, I'll wrap up now because I realize I'm taking up too much of your time. But thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and genuinely, it means a lot that you would take the time to do this.
I'm thrilled, and I would love, after this podcast, you can tell me more about you as an actor.
Oh yeah, well, I would love to. I would love to. I mean, honestly, yeah, it's just one of those. The reason I started this podcast was to talk to people like you, and it's just I did this because of the pandemic. When the pandemic happened, I was I was out of work. I wasn't getting auditions. No one was, and I just thought I need to find a way to still communicate with people in the industry, and now like 4 years later, it's blossomed into this thing where I get to talk to people like you, and I just really buzz off it. So it's worked out really nicely, which is great.
My pleasure.
But yeah, no, I will. I would like to ask you actually, what the film that you're working on that's coming out soon. What can you talk about that project at all, or is it all under wraps?
I can only tell you that the director is Derek Cianfrance, and I can't tell you any more about it.
I'm going to do my homework now and try and figure it out.
That's enough, because he's just a
incredible,
tremendous, incredible director. So I'm very lucky to be working with him.
Wow, amazing. Well, I will look out for that for sure.
I suppose something that I could say also is that if there are parts that come your way, you never know who's going to be in that audience, who will come up with something else for you. And so it's good to work as much as you can, much as you're able.
It's all practice as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the auditioning is really tough, and I find it difficult because I'm dyslexic. So sometimes if I haven't had quite enough time with the dialogue or anything like that, it can then jack up my nerves even more. But it is tough. I did a film, and the only reason I did it and the only reason I got the role is because I met the director randomly years before, and before I'd even started acting, and she was like, "You just look like this character that I've been writing," and so I was very fortunate to get my first lead in a feature with this woman who basically championed me. We did a load of workshops. I learned to dance. I did all these things for this film, and because that was my first sort of big substantial job, then I've really struggled like with auditions after that. I know I can do it and I know, but auditioning just sometimes I go in there and it's amazing and I feel like I've really made the most of it, and sometimes just the nerves get to me, and that's tough.
Well, that's why as a casting director or a director, you have to be able to recognize someone who can do it but doesn't do it for you in the room. That happens a lot. You're not the only one. So as a casting director who's working for producers and directors, you have to be able to say, no, they can do it. Sorry, maybe try it again, but you have to be able to say that to your director. You have to say, no, you're wrong. This person can do it. Let's try it again. Or I would try it again on my own. So, that's the job of the casting director. It's not to weed out, it's to help and help grow. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Definitely. And I think what you just said there and what you said before as well really resonated, that don't read until you're ready and control the room. I'm going to really sort of, I'm going to remember that.
And when you walk into a room and you can look at the casting director and face up to that person as if they're not more important than you, that you are as important as they are, that helps too, I think. I've had meetings too where I didn't feel so good.
We've all been there. We've all been
there. For sure.
Most embarrassing moments,
I will share something with you. I don't know, what anybody will think, but there's this wonderful actor. His name is Gael Garcia Bernal, and he's just fantastic. And we did a movie together with Harvey Keitel a long time ago, and I thought, gosh, it's like Daniel Day-Lewis. He's going to be that important. And I was auditioning, and he came into audition, and he asked me if he could read again. And I said no. And I could never forget that, because I see his films, I see his work, and I think I made a huge mistake. Not that he was right specifically for the part, but that he's so extraordinary. And the whole thing that in what I like to do is give chances to people, take the time to let them speak on camera and let them audition once, twice, 3 times. And for some reason that day I said no to him. And I thought to myself, even recently, I wish I could take that day back and read them a second time. So I don't know how embarrassing that is, but for me, it was like a huge error. So
he might hear this and then be like, well, I'm coming for the next thing.
he could do whatever he wants to do. He is so good and he's so talented and beautiful and political. And I made a mistake. It's probably better that he wasn't in the movie that he was reading for. However, it bothered me, and it was some years ago. So I never did that again. If an actor says, "Can I try it again?" I always let them.
Oh, well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, yeah, no, thank you again.
I don't know if that's embarrassing or not, but for me, it was pretty terrible.
I think it's very touching. I think it's very touching, and it's a nice thing to hear. You know, if he got to hear that, I think it would be a great thing.
Yeah,
it's hard trying in for auditions, and you know,
it is, and I always say that you should never read until you're ready and control the room, control what you want to say and do, and feel it first and then move forward. And I think so many times we're nervous. And by the way, I get nervous too. I don't even think auditioning is all that great. You have to do it because that's how you get parts.
Well, buddy, I'll let you go now, but thank you so much again. And I'll look out for your documentary when it's out in the UK. And if I struggle, I'll be in touch, and I'd love to see it. So I'm fascinated by that.
You let me know, and thank you for wanting me to be on your podcast.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
Very nice.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, have a great day, and all the best.
Thank you. Same to you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Since Bonnie and I recorded this episode, I've had the pleasure of watching her documentary, and it's a fantastic insight into, well, not only for actors, but fellow filmmakers and anyone really that's into film. It's honestly, it's a real treat. I was lucky enough to randomly see it while I was on a really long flight with Emirates, so if you are flying anywhere with Emirates, check it out. The US and UK release is yet to be confirmed, but if you keep an eye out on our Instagram and YouTube channel, we'll keep you updated on when and where you can watch it. Thank you to our guest Bonnie, and thank you to Artist International Group. As always, thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp.